Yeah? I got a few no responses. All right, here's the deal. I can't tell any Mark stories today. Right. Because he's in the room. But I want you to know that he is growing and growing and growing, and I am ever so grateful for that because it makes our partnership even better. During the meditation, I was sitting in the back and the door opened. I always looked to see who's coming in the door, and he walked in. I was like, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I don't know." Came in to handle something on my mobile device because, we still don't have internet at home. But I fixed it. It's coming. I was bound and determined. I was fired up. I was going to get internet at my house. I'll tell you that in a minute. But so he came into town and went, I'm going. I guess I'm going. I'm like, all right, cool. All right, well, our talk today is unbound and unstoppable. Anybody here want to feel unbound and unstoppable? Yes, right? Last week we talked about that fire in our belly and being fired up. And what does that feel like? How does that feel, and where do we get that spark? We talked about how we get that spark by going within and listening to that still small voice. And even if you're not feeling fired up, at least acknowledge that little spark within you. Acknowledge it. Sometimes that's all we have to do is say, "Hey, spark, I see you there." And it goes, "Oh, you do? Oh, you see me? Oh, can I shoot up a little bit more flame?" And it does. It's that easy. It's that easy. Today we're going to talk about being unbound and unstoppable. Basically, if we believe in something so deeply and we decide to pursue it, we feel a sense of freedom to accomplish it. A sense of freedom to accomplishment. Have you ever felt really fired up about something and you just start going down the path and it's just like everything falls into place, even then when you don't realize what's happening? Yeah, right, story of your life. There's no limits or barriers that could stop us when we're feeling that. It's as if nothing is holding us back, and then we're unbounded and unstoppable. It's how we manifest and express life's creativity, right? That's how we do this. So freedom is a divine quality in God, right? Anybody agree? Yeah. Freedom is a divine quality of God. It represents free will, independent expression, creativity, and liberty. Right? Yeah. It means no outer or inner restraint. No outer or inner restraint. Have you ever had that outer restraint? Yeah. Someone else is going, no, you can't do that. Nah, that's really not your lane. Stay in your lane. Have you heard that before? I don't think that that's really the right idea. Or internally, I don't think I could do it. Or I've shared this story with you a lot about the carrot dangling in front of me, that I wasn't going to go for the carrot because somebody was just going to rip it away. So why bother? That was my internal. Nobody was holding the carrot in front of me. I was doing it. Until one day I said, you know what? Put the darn stick down. Right? Put the stick down. I'm the one holding it out here and trying to reach it. But as we do our spiritual work, we release those inner restraints and we unbind ourselves with freedom. Then we can build our resilience and our excitement for life. But only then. We then develop a sense of being unstoppable and realizing our dreams and our goals because we know there's no limitations in God. I shared this with my class, and I think I shared it with Catherine earlier this week. I went to a women's retreat years ago. I was 40. I went to this women's retreat, and when I came back about a couple of weeks later, I got woken up in the middle of the night with this voice that said, "Buy a house." And I laughed. I sat up and I laughed And I heard it again, buy a house. I literally, out loud said, with whose good looks and whose money, because I don't have either. I laughed and I went back to sleep. And it happened again. Buy a house. Seriously, I don't have any savings. I don't have any money. I'm renting this beautiful house that I share with someone that was way undervalued. I was paying much cheaper rent than anyone else around me. It was really easy. I had just enough to make my rent and go about my day, take all of my classes, do everything I wanted to do. Sometimes it was a little tight, but I was generally all right. And this voice kept happening. Buy a house. Buy a house. Buy a house. Now, I was raised in a, don't worry, we'll send you to college for an MRS degree. Right? And I didn't go to college. An MRS degree, Mrs. Yeah. And I didn't go to college. And then when I stopped dating the boy I was dating all the way through high school, who was going to college for his engineering degree, my father literally stopped talking to me. Because he was going to marry me off to Billy. Yeah, it wouldn't have been a good thing. Billy's a lovely man now, by the way. I want you to know. Billy and I still keep in touch. And that wasn't my path. My path was something different. My path was something completely different. What had happened was I started to tell my friends that this thing was waking me up in the middle of the night. And I had a friend that said to me, well, you know, I work for a mortgage company. I went, yeah, okay, whatever. She said, well, let's run the numbers. And I went, She said, come on, let's go run the numbers. And she ran the numbers and she found me alone. And I said, wait, what? I can't afford this. She said, yeah, you can. When you do your taxes and you readjust things, suddenly the money is there. And I didn't believe her. But that voice still was talking to me, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house. Okay, all right. So I started looking at places to live. I ended up going with another person in another mortgage company later on because it didn't work out with my friend. But I started looking at these condos in a really bad part of town because that's what I thought I could afford. And my agent said, you know, I think you could afford more than what you think you can. And I said, I don't want to overextend. I don't have anybody to fall back on. It's me. Single woman here. It's me. And so we got me my first house. Nice little cute bungalow in a not so bad neighborhood. I had been renting a few blocks away from there for years. So I knew about where I was going. I moved into the house and 3 months later, I got laid off. No severance, no savings, brand new house to me, and no income. What do you do? What do you do? I panicked first. I panicked because I'm human, right? I panicked. And then I breathed. I did some breathing. Okay, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all right. My former landlord called to see how I was doing. We had become friends by that point because I had been renting from him for about 10 years. And I told him what happened, and he said, Eileen, here's the deal. I know you are good for it. I've never had any doubt in my mind that you are a woman of integrity. If you need money, you say the word, and I will wire you 10 grand today. Wait, what? This man who lived in New York, who happened to own a house in California, was willing to wire me 10 grand if I needed it? Because as he said, you are not losing that house. I will not let that happen. I said to him, thanks, Tim. Can we put that on hold? Let me see what I can do. And I made finding a job my number one priority, ended up at this little startup, and 14 years later, I'm in a bigger house, a better house, with more money. Because I was willing to do the work, right? I was willing to do my treatment, I was willing to trust in God, and I was willing to move my feet to get towards where I wanted to be. I had a roommate years and years ago. She would say to me, I don't know why you go out so often. I was in a band, and I would go out and perform with the band, and then every once in a while I would go out, because another friend of mine was, all these people were all in another band, and I would go and I would get people up dancing. That was my job with this band, was just to get people up dancing and having a good time. Always takes one to break the ice, right? And she would say to me, I don't know why you are always going out. You are not going to meet the right person going out all the time. And I said to her, is that person going to come knock on the door? Going, excuse me, I hear there's a single woman here. She said, you never know. You never know. Well, the next person I dated for the next 10 years actually walked in the front door of our house, right? It just happens to work that way. You never know. I wasn't going to find anybody in a bar dancing. Those weren't the people I was looking to attract. Instead, I got somebody that knocked on the door because he happened to be best friends with her husband. Really nice guy. It worked out because I gave myself permission. I allowed that freedom and those blockages to go away. So, many cultures celebrate Independence Day. We have 4th of July. There's Independence Days in many, many countries, right? Why is it? They're celebrating an independence from struggle, control, or dominance. It's a reclamation of truth and making things right, just, and equitable. Why don't we have our own Independence Day? Why don't we give ourselves our own Independence Day? I know in 12-step we do. We call it our birthday. This is the anniversary of the day that I got clean and sober. This is the anniversary of the day that I stopped smoking cigarettes. This is the anniversary of the day that I gave up gambling, whatever it was. We have our own Independence Day in 12-step programs, and there's a reason for that. Why? Because we're celebrating the fact that we have overcome something that was holding us back. Something that was holding us back. We stopped selling ourselves short and imposing our own restrictions on ourselves. And we realized that in God we are unbound and unstoppable. Then sometimes we allow those perceived obstacles to be in our real lives. I talked about that with my story of buying a house, the perceived obstacle. I didn't have any money and I didn't have any good looks. There was no way somebody was just going to hand me a house or a mortgage. I believed that. I believed it. Instead, what I did is I thought, okay, Susie Orman, we all know who Susie Orman is, right? Susie Orman says, never, ever, ever cash out your 401k. And I thought, I'm going to cash out my 401k and buy a house. And I did. And I tell you, I made more money in cashing out that 401k and buying a piece of property when the market crashed than I ever would have in leaving it in that account, right? I was building my future by putting roots down somewhere. Of course, then I rebuilt my 401k, but still, right? There's still things that I had to do that were against the norm, against what this woman that was on TV and on the radio and on my podcast kept telling me over and over and over. Her way wasn't my way. And that's okay. Oh, I was a poet there. I didn't even know it. So remember, it could be also somebody's old fears, somebody else's fears. Yeah. My dad's fear was that if I didn't marry Billy, that I would become a burden of someone. That was his fear. His fear. It wasn't mine. Wasn't mine. I waited 30 more years to get married. I waited a long time for the right person to show up. Who was that? Me. Me. I was the right person. Mark was just the bonus, right? Mark's the bonus. I had to be the right person. And that meant getting out of my way. Confidence and conviction are what are required in order to be unbound and unstoppable. There's a quote by Eckhart Tolle. Where did I put it? Eckhart says, nothing else can satisfy or fulfill unless we enjoy the freedom that comes from control of our inner world, mind, and emotions. Unless we enjoy the freedom that comes from the control of our inner world, our inner mind, and our inner emotions. How many times have we sat in our story? How many times have we sat in the story of someone doesn't like me, or I didn't do that really well, or I failed, or the story of I'm never going to be able to buy a house because I don't have a spouse. And as a woman in Silicon Valley, I'm never going to be able to afford to buy here. I was held back by that. The fact that I did it shocked the heck out of me, right? Still does. I still put the key in my door and I'm like, wow, I'm not paying anyone else for this. This is really cool, right? And it took a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. I have to do maintenance. I have to clean it, and I have to paint it, and I have to put on a new roof and fix fences and all those things. That's a lot of responsibility. A lot of responsibility that I didn't have when I was a renter, right? And I had a landlord that wasn't going to raise my rent. He was just happy to have somebody in the house that cared about it, right? Confidence and conviction is when we don't fully know or understand the full picture, but we're simply following our intuitive sense. That's when we know we're heading in the right direction. Have you ever had that? You're like, I know I'm supposed to go do this. I don't know how it's going to happen. If you see a few nods. I didn't know how I was going to buy that house, but I knew it had to happen. I didn't know what my ministry was going to look like, but I knew I needed to go to ministerial school. It was a pull, it was a draw, it was a come. It pulled me so hard, and it was another one of those. I don't have time, I don't have money. Ministerial school's not cheap, let me tell you. And I was working 50 hours a week in a big high-tech corporate job. How was I going to do this? But the draw was so powerful that there was no way I could not do it. I had to do it. I had to do it. And even as a senior going, what is my ministry going to look like? I know, I'm up in Albion, I'll go visit my friend Reverend Ruth who's speaking. And then you all showed up. Right? You never know, you just listen to the call, you follow it. What's fired up in you? What is fired up that you can release so you can be unbounded and unstoppable? With conviction and confidence, we are undaunted by those labels, and we feel empowered to step out of our own way. Have you ever felt that? Get out of your way. I say that to myself a lot. Eileen, get out of your own way. It's actually said with other words, but Eileen, get out of your way. Stop it. That's the other one I say to myself a lot. Stop it. When the monkey mind starts going, you don't know anything about that, do you? Maureen's like, nope, never had that experience in my life, as she laughs louder and louder. Nope. It's that monkey mind. It's that voice going, man, you can't. What is their Bette Midler song? I'm beautiful. I'm not too tall, I'm not too short, I'm not too tall, I'm not too big, I'm not too small. Ooh, don't let me start loving myself. Right? Let's do karaoke night, you'll hear me do the whole song. It's one of my favorites. So in order to feel unbounded, we have to free ourselves of restraint with an unlimited ability to move and take action. And where do we find that? We find that in our daily spiritual practice. Meditation, prayer, calling a practitioner. Have you all called a practitioner before? Yeah? If you haven't called a practitioner, that is one of the best things you can do for yourself. Right, Winter? Winter's stretching in the back. Yeah! Call my practitioner. A practitioner is going to be your best friend. Why? Because they see the truth about you. So when you can't get out of your own way, they can do it for you. That's their job. They have trained for years to do this. 4 years. That's why we have somebody available to you after service to pray with you, so they can help you get out of your own way. That's their job. They are licensed to pray. Feels like a powerful statement, right? I am a practitioner. I am licensed to pray. Right? It's powerful. These people have worked hard to get to that point. Take advantage of that. So, here's what I want you to think about, do for the next week. I want you to do a self-assessment. Ask yourself, are there areas in my life that I feel restricted? Are there areas in my life that I feel restricted? And if so, what is calling you to shift? What's calling you to shift? And work with a practitioner to discover your internal blockages that might be stopping you from fulfilling your highest purpose. We all have a purpose. Ernest Holmes says, the only reason a person is limited is that they have not allowed the divine within them to more completely express. Yeah. I have blocked the divine within me from time to time. I still do it. I've been a licensed practitioner for 22 years. It still happens. I'm human. So if you're feeling that, don't feel like you're less than. We all stumble. My practitioner used to say to me, every time you stumble, you might think that you're taking 2 steps back, but really, Eileen, you're only taking 1. Every time you make a mistake, you're only taking 1 step back. And then when you learn, when you overcome it, you take 2 steps forward. So don't see a misstep as an absolute failure. Because every time you make a mistake and you realize it, you're building and you're becoming bigger and better and stronger. And that advice has carried me through decades. And I hope that can serve you as well. So this week, be unbounded and unstoppable. And if you're feeling yourself a little tied up in knots, give one of our practitioners a waiting license a call. Call Reverend Gail, call me, call Reverend Tanya. Call someone who you trust that has prayer for you. And let them. Let's pray. I'm knowing that there is only one source, one divine presence that moves in, through, and around each and every one of us in this room. And it is unbounded and it is unstoppable. It is the law and it only says yes. It is all of those things that we are desiring in our human lives. It is that feeling of being loved and loving. It is the abundance. It's the health. It's the vitality. It's clarity. It is freedom. And all that it is, I know we are as well. Because we are born in the image and likeness of it. We are it experiencing itself as humans, as Eileen, as George, as Robin Marie. It is showing up as each and every one of us. And it is having a great time. I'm knowing that as it shows up for each one of us, it shows up for everyone here, everyone online, and everyone that might be listening to this talk at a later date. It shows up everywhere. There's no spot where God is not. Yes. And knowing that to be the truth, I am declaring in this moment an absolute healing for all those that are seeking for it. I am claiming absolute abundance for anyone who is feeling less of anything in their lives right now. I'm claiming health and vitality. I'm claiming joy. I'm claiming peace in the world. Yes, I'm claiming peace in the world. I'm knowing that everything that we request, it is available to us in the mind of God, is ours right now. And that is everything. Everything. Because there is no separation. Because the Divine One is the great giver. And all we must do is ask. We do so with great, great gratitude. Gratitude in knowing that it is always available to us. Just like our favorite fruit, always ready, perfect, ripe on the vine for us to pick and pull at any time. It's that simple. It's that simple. And so I just released this prayer. I release this prayer knowing that it's already done in the mind of God, that there is nothing else that I need to do but trust it and then walk my walk. And if you would like to declare this with me, join me in saying, and so it is. Beautiful. Thank you.